Great. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michelle Ponce. I am the Director of Career and Professional Development here at Claremont Graduate University. And I've had the wonderful pleasure to connect with Elizabeth Ribons. Oh gosh, it's been about 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer since we connected through an alumni at CGU. And so it was remarkable. I can't say the first time Elizabeth and I talked, I felt like she was already a friend, and we bonded so fast, and it was pretty incredible. So um, let me share with you a little bio about her, and I'm going to be looking at my other screen, so please don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm just reading because she has some detail and some history here, and it's kind of fun. So Elizabeth Ribons, she began launching small businesses early on, applying life-centric approaches and working across disciplines throughout her career. She did this through identifying trends and unmet needs in the market. She successfully introduced products and services, engineering the business to work with the landscape of her time, her unique abilities, and her lifestyle. She is an entrepreneur, an innovator, host, mentor, and a speaker. With thousands of hours designing change solutions for careers in life, entrepreneur Elizabeth Ribons shares her expertise to engage her audience and empower them with tools to navigate the rapidly changing landscape in business, career, life, to live, work, and lead dynamically and effectively. So she's pretty remarkable, lots of positive energy, and we are going to have a chat with her today. So welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm really happy to be here. I
Well,
did
we're
participate in the mock interviews, and I really
Mhm.
enjoyed the students. So
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So our students are pretty incredible. I mean, they're intellectual capital, and then they're just the wherewithal to navigate where they are in their life, and involve our office in that process is quite rewarding. So Elizabeth and I thought of some questions to start with, but as always, and those of you that have been on the workshops with our team, we like to kind of present a little bit informally in the sense that we want you to ask questions along the way. Really important to kind of get those burning questions out. So we're just going to start off with something general and something basic to kind of introduce Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, as you talk about your career and throughout your career journey, what is that one common denominator that brought everything together, and kind of reflecting back on that bio, right? So what brought all of this together?
I think as far back as I can remember is change, but how I responded to it, and I really was design, and not design in like let's design something pretty. It was designing intentionally, coming up with solutions, creating solutions, and staying nimble and responding to change. So that's me in a nutshell, pretty much, is always being able to do that. So
And change is kind of hard for people. A lot of people don't necessarily gravitate towards change. And so, where in your life were you comfortable with that space, or did you just learn to do that?
I think because I come from a large family and I had a lot of far down the line, I'm the fourth, and so I had to be sort of very resourceful and come up with ideas and things, and it was a good thing because I was able to build confidence in my ability to design and create, and so that therefore I think I was comfortable with it in an early age of just okay, if that doesn't work, then how about this or this? It was always that kind of impulse for me. So yeah.
Where do you fall in your family? Are you at the end or the beginning, middle?
And I'm the
The
end.
end.
Yeah.
So you're the baby.
Yeah.
I am too. Okay. Oh, awesome. Okay. I knew we'd get along just great. Sometimes I always acted like the oldest child, though. It was weird. I had those moments.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I was like yeah, I had to because busy home, and I just sort of had to figure things out. Um,
mhm.
as old, kids that have come from big families do, and so yeah, it's part of. And whenever change happened in my life, career, whatever, I just would pull those resources, and it's just something that innately is part of me. Is coming
Mhm.
up with creative solutions. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, as we talk to the students and we navigate that, it's so much easier to preach versus practice. And change is going to happen. It's inevitable. We do have students on the screen right now that are going to be graduating. Some may be alumni, whatever the case is. And so there's always that change and that anticipation of what life will look like and where life was, right?
Right.
So, yeah, thank you for that. What does large family mean for you? Is it
What do you mean? As
like
far as,
how many in your family?
oh, I have, for me, I was the fourth one, so there were six of us.
Oh, yeah.
For my own, I have two children, so,
Yeah.
but still, you know, and then extended family, of course, large, but.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta love that. Okay, well, let's move on. So we talked a little about that one common denominator, but what are the qualities early on in your life that inspired you to become an entrepreneur? And you kind of like hinted to a little bit as a child, but what was that?
Well, I guess, having time to really look around and seeing some things that were unmet. It's unmet needs, unmet, maybe this is needing better thought, better something, and I have this over here, so I'm going to bring them together. And that was early on. I was very young. I remember trying to do, sell things and put together things and create. And so it's just in my back, as they say. It's in my bones. It's who I am. So I've always done that all the way through school, every time. And I'd be working, of course, and going to school, but there would always be like a little business that I was doing.
What were some of the businesses early on that you did as a child? And obviously they evolved as you became an adult.
Well, one was not one of I was probably not even six, and my siblings were watching Saturday morning TV, and there was a lot of toys that they didn't play with, so I went ahead and loaded them in my wagon and took them out to the neighborhood to sell, because I thought this is really good. They don't need them, and then there's kids out here that might want them. And so I got obviously corrected on that behavior. But I did things like that, or I'd start making little things and deciding that maybe that somebody wanted it, and then somebody did, and so it was always that way. I'd make something for myself, and then everybody wanted it, and so I would just see, like, why are they doing it that way when they could probably use this and do that way. So it was always that kind of thinking, and it was exciting to me. I enjoyed it because I could come up with a solution, and it made me happy. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, I didn't go and take things from people anymore after that. I learned that that wasn't what you're supposed to do.
Well, and that was brilliant because I think as a child, we don't really have any possessions besides our toys, right? We don't own things. And so you were very resourceful. So I'll give it to you there. But leading on to that a little bit more, as what was your first entrepreneur experience as an adult?
As an adult, I was, like I said, I had the side gigs all through school. And then I really did focus myself on, I was very ambitious, and I focused myself and got all of the learning, everything I needed. And I worked really hard in the industry to own my own clothing company. And
Mhm.
I did that. And it took me a while to do that. Um, and I did it very strategically, and I did it with that same sense. And a lot of people laugh at this, but I saw at this time, I'm a what is that, Gen Xer? So
Mhm.
I saw at that time they had hideous maternity clothing, hideous. And that was an area in the market that nobody was really doing anything about. And I came up with, and this was when women my age were full force going into careers.
Mhm.
My mother did, she wanted a career, but it wasn't, hey, you're gonna just have kids, that kind of thing. So uh, we needed clothes. We needed something that looked a little better than those big tents that they were trying to sell. And so I designed really great looking clothes. And I also found microfiber. So it was half the price point of like a silk dress, which is everybody would have to buy silk dresses to wear to their baby showers, and they didn't want to spend all that money. So I found really good salespeople, sales teams, and forced it. And then I really just put it together, strategized a lot, and was able to get right into Nordstrom's, Macy's. I was nationwide, because this was, again, hmm, why isn't anyone handling this? Why isn't anyone
Mhm.
answering this need? And boy, I could do this with what I know. So I put those things together, and and did it. And so yeah, it was exciting, and it took off early on. Um, and and I decided, you know what, this is great. And you get to that point in business, and anyone who's owned businesses, you get to a point where you've proved it, and then you've got to go and get more money or more funding to build it higher in scale. And I had just had a baby, and I decided, oh wow, I this is probably going to be one or the other. I'm not going to be able to raise her and do this business. And so I decided to end the business, even though I had had some
Mhm.
success with it. It was great. I didn't want to do that. I said, okay, you know what? This has been great. I know I can do it again. So then I decided to raise my daughter, and I took some time, and then I started to do speculative real estate investment. So we that's flipping, but that was a long time ago when people didn't know it really talk about
Nice.
flip. So I started flipping properties, really small little houses, and just that I could do with babies. So I figured out what I could do to
Mhm.
use what I know and my resources, and then take my resources, meaning your connections, your knowledge, everything,
Mhm.
and still be able to live the life that I wanted. That was super important to me. I'm going to be here for my daughter. I'm going to raise my daughter, but that doesn't mean I have to sit home. Like I said, my mom, she really wanted a career, and she wasn't allowed that. Well, I was in a time where I almost was letting down my contemporaries if I didn't work. So I was trying to balance that, trying to figure out that place where I'm out there doing it, but I'm still being able to raise my kids. And I figured it out. And so it was, we were able to start doing that. And then that spiraled into the next thing. And so, but
Yeah.
I do want to say I had a great opportunity through my 20s when I was really working hard to learn everything I could, so that I could launch that business and really make that network happen, get my connections, get to know people, get to know the ins and outs, and who was a really good sewing house and what wasn't, and all of those
Mhm.
things. And I had a chance to work with the film and TV, and that's a great career if you have only wanting a career. And I was really working hard, and there was Orion was I worked for 13 months in the industry, and it was exciting, but I had no other life. I would have money, but
Yeah.
so I did an opera, and I was a minion. I wasn't any. I was working in a, and I remember the woman that was the designer. She all she did was work all the time. She didn't have a cat. She didn't have a plant. She just worked all the time. And I thought to myself, wow. And I admired her for what she'd achieved, but I thought I think I can get what I want in life and be fulfilled without having to do that. So that's why I did walk away from that, because I said, this is a great opportunity. And they could fill me the next day, fill in my position the next day. It wasn't like like I said, I was a minion, but it was exciting, and I'm glad to have done it. But at the same time, it was a lot. And that's when I really, during that my 20s, I really said, I'm going to engineer something where I can still work and still have a life. That's super important to me, and still achieve things. I work hard. I work a lot. So I'm not a typical, someone that just works like 35, 40 hours a week. So I'm always busy. So my idea of working and someone else's is different probably. But so
Yeah.
that's me, and that's how I got to this kind of thinking, and how I've continued to change and use what I know to to make my life and my career happen.
It's interesting when you talk, there's so many internal pressures that we put ourselves under in a lot of ways, but then especially as an entrepreneur, um, your mind's always going a million miles a minute, and starting the clothing business, but then saying, okay, I'm at a space now where my life is changing, my personal life is changing. I still want to be innovative and creative, but then I also want to kind of delve into this space. I have a child and I want to be a part of their life too. There's a lot of pressures, I think, on parents and families, um, and even breaking it down in the sense of gender. It's very difficult. And so trying to figure out what's best is a really personal decision. And I think that it's very individualized. So I definitely appreciate that.
And I think a lot of times I think it's changed since COVID, but you know, the Great Resignation, there was just so many women that just said, I can't do
Yeah,
all of this anymore. And it kind of had to break because we were all trying to work,
do it all.
do it all,
Mhm.
and be, you know, have it all and do it all. And how do you make that balance happen? And I think it's getting better, but it's still very difficult, you know, to balance that out. And so seeking that out, I think I'm making that priority for me, help
Mm.
me to better strategize how I was going to work and still thrive and still get those goals, but in a way that was going to, I didn't feel like I was having to really try to do it all, or that I was settling for something less.
Yeah.
So that was really important to me.
Yeah, and in that, I mean, that's a really good point. I think that a lot of times, we have so many ideas in life, and it's exciting, and we want to try them all at the same time, but we also want to embed quality versus quantity in them. But during the pandemic, there were a lot of people that didn't realize that they were on autopilot, right? And so once they were able to come out of that, they were like, well, some things need to slow down. And that's where people started using gratitude and grace and things like that, just to kind of give themselves that okay.
Yeah.
But thank you. Okay, well, let's move on because I have so many great questions, and I know that we've looked at them, but I want to ask them all. And again, for the audience, please feel free to ask. So can you share two aspects that have influenced your trajectory and how you have stayed true to yourself? So it can be three, it can be one, but some aspects of, what has really influenced your trajectory, but how do you stay true to yourself?
Well, I think those stories I just shared is what am I here for? Like, if I'm gonna have a family, if I'm gonna have people in my life, I have this gift of life, I want to live it. And so
Mhm.
for me, I feel like because I have this notion to design, for me, it's really asking, am I happy? Is this really where I want to be? How can I use my best skills now for the greater good, but also to make sure that I'm really showing up for myself, for others. You know, I just wanted to make sure that I'm not parsing myself out too much, that I take care of me. It's like concentric circles. Take care of me, take care of my family and close, you know, and close friends and all of that. So if I'm not good, then I can't really be good for anybody else.
Yeah. And I love that. Show up for yourself. And that is so true. If you're not healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, then you're not going to be able to permeate that to the world and give that gift that you all have, right?
Exactly.
Um, yeah. So, okay. So, we talked a little bit about this, not necessarily this time, but when you and I were chatting, but have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you not let it stifle this growth and this constant, like, oh, I want to try this, I want to do this, or I'm going here? How did you navigate that one?
Well, I think it's a natural thing to have imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
I think our brains just say, hey, you're doing something new, caution, caution.
Mhm.
But it's not productive. If we have goals and we want to really get somewhere, I just felt like this is not going to get me where I need to go. And then I had to get the focus off of myself and what people are thinking or what they're wanting, or oh my god, I can't do this, to if I could be useful to one person here. If I'm in an interview, they're interviewing me because they're interested in my skills and abilities, and they really need to fill a position, and they really need, or they, if I'm selling a contract, or you know, talking to people, there's a need there, and I'm hoping to fulfill somewhat or all of that need. So it's better for me to think that way than to think, oh my gosh, what if I'm not this, I'm not good enough, what if they think I'm weird, what if I'm, so I can't go there because I'm never going to win the room. There's going to be some people that think I'm weird, or so, you know, I can't help that. So what I can do is be there to be of service and to do my best. And I know people who are high caliber, successful people, but then another bar comes where they're going to be giving a presentation, or they're doing something, they're coming out in the world with a new idea, and they have it, they get the imposters,
Mhm.
and they manage it, they just manage it and just turn it off, like turn it around and say, I'm bringing something for others instead of looking at yourself. Because I can't be a winner. I'm going to do my best, but I cannot say that I'm perfect or that I'm a winner all the time or that I'm going to do so great all the time. I'm fooling myself. I just do my very best, and that's all I can do.
Yeah, and I think it's also allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that space too, right? And say, I don't know everything. I'd like to act like I do, and I always say that, but I certainly don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know it all. And I at one of my positions, and it was quite some time ago. It was over a decade ago or so. There was a counselor that I worked with, and they were really good about making me feel like I had no idea what I was doing, although I did. And I kind of suckered into that space. And I've told my team this, and I've told some of the students this too. I'm the queen of overthinking, right? I'll create any kind of scenario in my head that's not true. And so I have to figure out how to navigate that one. So when I go up and do presentations and things like that, I always have to remember that the audience has no idea what I'm supposed to be saying. And so they, so
Good.
unless I'm an expertise in the field, they should be up on stage with me. So I can assume that anything I say is going to be like, oh, okay, great. That sounds fantastic. So I have to constantly believe that in myself. And I think that that's what we do to protect ourselves. But at the same time, there's always something on the other shoulder going, you have no idea what you're doing,
Right. It's that sort of, like the devil angel,
Uh-huh. Yeah, the super ego
exactly,
and
that's
the
telling
ego.
us.
Yeah.
So I think that a little bit of that, well, wait, I better make sure I'm really prepared, and I better check, and I
Hmm.
better like maybe get some feedback and go, is
Hmm.
this tracking with you? Are you getting what I'm saying? So that's good. But at the same time, you have to, I'm not going to hold this back. Maybe somebody could use this. I'm going to say what I need to say, your expertise, right? So
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
important. That's important.
That's hilarious. Or not. So let's take a quick little pause. We have a whole bunch of questions, but are there any questions in the audience? Anybody want to say anything, share anything? Just unmute yourself and say, hey, anybody? Silence. Come on, y'all. Okay. I'll go to the next question. And then after this question, then we're going to take a pause and make everyone ask a question. So think of your question. We'll give you some time. So, we've talked about your entrepreneur side, and I always, appreciate that. My sister and my dad were entrepreneurs. My sister still is. Dad has passed, but, I love the idea of it, but I also got very nervous not having a regular paycheck and insurance. So,
Yeah.
that was the hard part for me. But as an entrepreneur, I'm sure that you work with just a diversity number of clients, from diversity in every aspect, right? So,
Mhm.
so have you ever engaged with a client or clients, that have compromised maybe your values, your integrity, or you just didn't want to work with them? How did you handle that? What did you do? And how did you say, no, I'm good?
It's a close relationship when you're working hard to create something, and um I kind of, just because I've done it for so long, I've worked for so long, you kind of pick up on that right away. But when I had, a whole office of people, and I had to make sure the lights stayed on, and then the paychecks were paid, I would take some jobs sometime where that little voice was saying, it's not. And, then I would be, why did I do this? And so I really, really screen and really, really make sure that it's the right fit for me. And even though I'm thinking, gosh, I've got bills I gotta pay, or that project is so big and it looks so juicy that I make all this money, but then there's all these things in it that could be really bad. So I've walked away from that. I've said no to that, and I didn't at first because I had to pay bills, and I always regretted it. So I just made a pact with myself that I wouldn't do it again. And that it's worked out pretty well for me. When I've said no, something else comes along, and I'm a much happier person for it, because it's really stressful when you've got someone that is litigious or is just really have no boundaries, and it's causing you a lot of mental stress. It's just not good. And so I really do, I think you can sniff it out. The older you get, you just know, oh, there's a red flag. And I have people say, oh, if you have anything, you want to refer me to, sure, I'll refer other people, but I'll call them and say, be careful, because these are the red flags that I caught. You may not be concerned. But yeah, so it's just having gone that route and having settled and said, I just want to get that money and that would be great. And I'll just look the other way. I won't really be bothered. And
So
I paid.
stepping and thinking about that though, what were those values? What were some of the things? I mean, obviously staying confidential, but what were some of those things that were potentially
Kind of graying the areas of laws and things that really
Mm,
shouldn't be done. As far as, I'm working huge projects and going, that's not right. And, or we're not going to really do it that way. And so I don't feel good about that. That's just me. So I would, I would not want to do work with that client again, with that
mhm.
company or client again. That was in my business, in my firm. Really, I think also it also depends on, it's not all, oh, I'm a victim, they're terrible. You could ask the right questions. You really have to ask the right questions to get that information and know for yourself, is this a fit? Is this going to work? Am I getting myself? Because when you take on something, it's not going to be just a couple of weeks. It's actually a year or two. You're involved in this project, and so you
Mhm.
need to ask the right questions. So powerful.
Yeah, I think that as we chat with the students today and even our own selves and our colleagues, it's really important to always be true to yourself. When I went into counseling, I know that it was the student and the energy from the student that would drive me. And in my last position as assistant dean, I was in it for many years, and people would always say to me, like, when are you going to be a dean? And in my world, I was like, never. Like, I just, that wasn't what I aspired to do. But I also found myself more packed with administrative meetings than being with the students. And so it changed me.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't, and so I was again deviating from what was my drive and my purpose. And so, you always have to, again, be true to yourself and know your boundaries. I'm not always good with it. But I've certainly gotten better, like you were saying, like as you age. Um,
Just kind of get a little bit more seasoned as far
yeah,
as you make the
that's,
mistakes and then you learn, hopefully.
mhm,
You hopefully.
yeah.
So yeah, and then you know how to ask those questions um, that are a little bit more searching. Because when someone presents you with something really like a golden egg, and you're like, "This
Mhm.
is a beautiful egg," and what do I? Oh, all I have to do is that, and but then you're like, "What if the egg? This?" You have to start asking those questions that
Yeah,
aren't really visible right there, so that you can
yeah.
find out, dig a little bit. And I think everyone now is really good at that, where they use social media, right? They really get in and they find information out so that they can
Mm.
see how people work or what's going on or how if it's a good fit for them. So
Yeah.
that's really wise to do.
And I also think that as everyone on the screen, as you navigate interviews, we're inclined to say, "Oh, I got an offer. I should accept it." You don't always have to accept it either, even though it's there. The fit has to be right because
Mhm.
these are your most productive waking hours, and you want to make sure that you feel comfortable in that culture and that environment as well. So I always like to kind of use metaphors to get to that same space, but it's so true,
Yeah.
right? Instead of you taking on clients, coming to a company, we're taking on them as a client in a lot of ways, where we
Yes, it's
have
the
to work
same
with
kind
them.
of, yeah, it's
Yep.
the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Okay. So I'm going to pause again. Does anyone have any questions or any comments or anything? I think Ro does. He just popped something up. Oh, Mary Claire. I'm in a loud location. Okay, great. So I'll write my question and I left. Okay, good. So I'll read this out loud. I left my teaching career because I let it take over my life and my health declined. Okay, so I've been in a space like that, so I can certainly resonate. So like you said, my main priority for my future job is to have a work-life balance. And do you have any advice on how to approach this when interviewing or looking for jobs? So Elizabeth, please share. And then
Well,
Liz
I
certainly
think you
can.
have to look at your 5-year plan. I talk about this a lot. So what's your 5-year plan for yourself? And if you've ever read that Bill Burnett, from Stanford Design School of Design, the your life book. I use that design process. I've been using it pretty much all my life before I knew there was a name for it. But you have to really take it apart and say, what are my goals 5 years from now? How do I achieve that with what I know? How can I apply that to a job? What are these? And you can actually even Google some of those descriptive words. And now with AI, it can probably come together quickly with some great things, and then start looking that way for the work. Maybe it's hybrid. Maybe you need to interface with people a little bit, but you'd like to be able to have that flexibility. Maybe flexibility is really important. So all of those things you really want to pull together and be clear on for yourself, and then start seeing how, and really question the challenges. Oh, well, that's not how we do things. Well, find a company that does. I mean, there's lots of great companies out there now that are really working to be more human centric. So if that's what you need, if you need to make a lot of money, then say teaching. Teaching is a wonderful profession, but you don't make a lot of money and you work really hard. So maybe there's something else. You have to ask yourself what those things are. Really be clear on what it is you want and what you bring, and then find those. Find what it. There's some place in the world that needs your genius, that needs you, and so I always encourage that you are needed. People need you. So you'll find that place, but you have to be really clear about what that is. And so, like I said earlier, in my 20s, I was kind of, wait, this is really cool to be working in film and TV. And then I was, oh my gosh, this is too much. It's going to be. So I kind of had to try on shoes a bit. And now I really am clear. So always look at your 5-year plan. I mean, I even tell women my age, look at your 5-year plan. What are you doing what you want to do? Are you headed towards it? You mean, what does Oprah say? Do what you have to do till you can do what you want to do. So it may not be right now, but in 5 years, if you stay on your plan, you get towards that thing that you're wanting for yourself. I hope that answers the question.
And then Kat put that book in the chat for all of you. I do want to comment, Mary Claire, because that's a fantastic question. And I think that sometimes you had the resiliency to step back and realize what it was doing. It took me some time. I was at my last institution 7 years and progressively got worse, mentally, physically, and emotionally sick. And so I had to step back and get to that space, but it did take some time to get there. Obviously our office can work with you individually, but I'm glad that you put it out for the audience, because a lot of times people think I'm the only one in this space, while a lot of people do go through this. And so what we can do, and what I will always share with my clients, is to step back and say, what were the parts that were amazing? Let's start positive. Like, what was your drive and your purpose? Was it the kiddos? Was it, depending on what area and level you taught, and then stepping into when did it become overwhelming? Was it that you're working 7 days a week and that you're correcting papers, or whatever the case is? Or was it your colleagues, or was it the politics of it? And so then we can kind of pick through and put the puzzles together to figure out how you can still nurture that excitement part of it, but then figure out a different space.
And I want to also back up with you and say,
Yeah.
Claire, it's really brave to say, wait a minute, this isn't working. I'm going to do something else. And you have, family, friends going, why? Oh, but if it's really not, and you say that and you act on it, I do think it's really so brave. And I really like that you asked that question. So thank you.
Yeah. It's a thank you. Yeah, it's great that you kind of put yourself out there and asked it, because it is hard. It's hard to also recognize it. And it's easy just to stay in a place of complacency and pain.
Yeah.
I know that sounds weird, but people do it all the time.
All the time.
So let's do another question, and then we'll take some more questions from the audience, because I know you have burning questions. Okay, so what are your biggest fears regarding your career, and which ones have come true?
I think it's not having enough money, not having enough work. That's, as an entrepreneur. The thing is, the funny thing to me is if you're working in a company and you get that regular paycheck, I mean, you see people get laid off, like we're
I
laying
know.
off 400 people. So there's really no certainty. So that whole thing of certainty it's kind of not really there. But when you're it can be, you know, um, frightening, but I don't find fear productive. I have to stay, I mean, it's there for a reason, and I have to do everything I can, but yeah, I don't find it productive. So I do my best, and I put out every bit of myself to make sure that I'm, you know, covering myself. But yeah, it's that wondering if the bills are going to get paid, and you know, the money this year, because you do your you know, every year you do your prospectus for the next year, and I'm thinking in numbers and wanting to make that, you know, so I'm working towards that. And some months are better, some months aren't. So, you know, it's just, I think it's something that you always hear
Yeah.
when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's great. Not good, but great. Um, does anyone have any questions before we move to another question? Kat, Katya, Sushi, Ro, Deborah. Ro does. Hey, Ro.
Great. My question's a little long, so I'm gonna put it in the chat and then read it to give Elizabeth some time to think about it. Okay. Um, okay. So I I looked on LinkedIn and I found you, and I saw an article that you wrote in, I think it was in the summer of 2023 when you were in Alaska. And you were posting some nuggets on, like, some tips on what to do for your life chart. So my question was, do you have any recommendations for entrepreneurs? And specifically, if you look at the majority of the people attending today, for female entrepreneurs that are seeking to repurpose their skills and their positions.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I can kind of put it in a nutshell. I figured someone would ask me that. And thank you for reading that article. It's a good
Of
question.
course.
Um, uh, I did a talk about this, and it's sort of just continuing to keep that 5-year plan. So you want to define and ideate, you know, you want to say what's my 5-year plan and what do I want? And then start creating how you're going to make that happen. And then you want to start looking at how you can make it happen. And I remember saying, make sure you're network, because now it's, I mean, my daughter's just talking to someone who's getting a PhD. She's brilliant. She's worked, and she's putting out, you know, she's not getting the bites. And it seems to me that it's always more of a, a personal introduction or reference that gets you through the door. So it's not every single time, but it seems like it's getting to be more so that way. So it's really good to network and to keep out there and to just continue to reach out to people. So one of the ways I was recommending, this is at UCLA, I was talking to 150 students, and I said a really great way is to keep those stories that you have of success right there, because you can say, I did this and I'm this and that and that, but you have to have the story behind it, because everyone likes to hear a story. But it shows that you have that knowledge, but also to back into it. So you find someone that's doing the job. I'm sure you've shot them this too, Michelle, doing the information interviews, and maybe kind of reach out through LinkedIn, and then just say, I'd really like 15 minutes of your time, and maybe start trying to network that way. It's the way of doing things that maybe isn't so fill out a resume, send it to people. Fill out a resume, send it to people. You kind of have to be creative, and you have to challenge those things of, well, that isn't going to work that way. Well, who says it isn't? I'm going to give this a try and reach out. And if I put out 10 of these, someone's going to say, sure, I'll talk to you. If someone did that to me and say, sure, I'll talk to you, because I know how hard it is to get out there and get started. So it's like, yeah, I'll talk to you. And so, and I'll listen to what you're wanting to do if I can be of help. And then just like when I did these interviews with the students, these mock interviews, then you go, this is a really, you know, quality individual. Maybe I know someone, you know, it helps. So it's those kinds of things, I think, reaching out, connecting to people, and then continue to check your plan, continue to remind yourself, like with the imposter syndrome, remind yourself of those stories, those wins, and evaluate it. Keep evaluating it, because as you go through life, you're going to have different needs and wants. And the career, it's not just one career anymore. It's always kind of going to change up. So stay ahead of it. Stay ahead of it and keep looking at, well, what can I do better here? How could this be better? And I'm going to point myself towards that direction and keep working towards that. And like I said, it might take a while. It won't be instant, but yeah, we're changing our careers now what is it, 7 to 10 times in a year, in a lifetime, in a lifetime. So it's that ability to continue to keep looking at, am I happy? Is this working? How can I go out and do something new that's going to fit my life, and start working towards that. I hope that's helpful. Was that helpful?
Yeah, for me it was. I mean, I'm sure it was for everyone else. I'm just in awe right now. I think if anything, it just confirms everything in my crazy head. But Ro, how about you? Oh yes, he's clapping. Yes, it's Hushi. Thank you. The link is in the chat as well. So thank you. I just have a couple more questions and we're coming to an end anyways. But before I move on to my last couple questions, does anyone have any? I know they will. I'm sure Kat does. She's pondering. She always has the most brilliant questions that she kind of thinks about, but it takes a little bit of time to soak in, right? She always asks these amazing questions. Okay, Katya, anyone else? Okay. Okay, so this is the next one. And we kind of talked about a little bit in the beginning, but you can delve more into it. But how did you navigate the blending of your personal and professional life, and in particular, family and other commitments, which I still haven't mastered in my life? Like I have my son's race in a few hours and we're going to be there for 6 hours tonight. It goes until forever, but like, how do you do that and still wake up the next day and say, okay, I've got this?
I don't know if you ever say I got this, but I tell myself I got this.
I know I do every morning.
I
Come on,
really
Michelle.
yeah, and so I think you just it works until it doesn't, you
Yeah.
know, and then you have to make adjustments. That's what I was just saying about the life, that sort of agile life. Those 5 things you always have to kind of keep adjusting and checking, and I just took on work and created businesses around the timing of my family. And then now, you know, even now I keep working that around so that I am able to do what it is I want to do. Now, do I always want to get to do what I want to do? No,
No.
but you know, but and I don't, do I feel like I always have it down? No. But I do my best, and I'm fulfilled and I'm happy.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when I was navigating my career and it was starting to really blossom, and then I wanted to start a family. Funny thing is, one of my biggest fears in starting a family was I going to get enough sleep? You know, like, people, I was so worried about sleep. And I had people look at me like, that's your biggest fear. I'm like, yeah, because what if the child wakes up in the middle of the night and I can't function the next day? It was like this weird fear. It wasn't the fact that I had to raise them and to be ethical kids or values, like all of that felt comfortable. It was, am I gonna sleep?
Yeah.
And then I also debated back and forth in my head, should I be a stay-at-home mom, or should I be in the workforce? And I've always wanted to be in the workforce and I loved my career. And I had one mom pull me aside and she said to me, don't let other people judge and don't let other people get into your head. Stop letting
Yes.
them run space in your head, but also understand that the quality time that you do spend with your kids when you're there is quality time. It's not the quantity amount of time. And it really helped and helped me get to a space that it was okay for them to go to their work and I would be at my work, and then we would come together as a family. And so I think that I still struggle with it. Like I've missed some of my son's races, but I have to figure out how to blend that personal and professional in some ways, and not let it get to me, you know? So it's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. And I think that we just aren't perfect. We can't be perfect.
Yeah.
We just do our very best, and we show up, and we can make adjustments. If
Mm.
we can make adjustments, we do.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to sound like, oh, it's just women but women
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
are the ones. I think I look at the, you know, industrial linear career,
Mhm.
and then women, it's more very fluid, and that ability to design and change your life around it, so you can be there for your parents, for your kids, for your work, for, you know, you want to be there for those things, and
Yeah.
not be doing only 20% for each one, or, you know, only 30%
Mhm.
for each one. You want to do your best. And so I think it's doable. It's just, you've got to figure out what, how you're going to do it and what you want. So I can say that it's doable.
Yeah. Yeah. So can I. I've lived through it. So
You didn't show up to a couple of the races, but my gosh, you're doing a lot. And the ones that you were, wow, that's awesome.
out of the hundreds of races, I missed like 2, and I feel it every day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're there for that many,
So Deborah, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Elizabeth, thank you for sharing. And I'm hearing this common theme throughout of talking about your values and really knowing and assessing what your values are and using those to guide you as you make decisions. And I think that a lot of people might struggle with, well, how do I, as you're younger, as you get older, life experiences, we come to grips more with what our values are and they're strengthened. But what advice would you have for those that are maybe younger, that are struggling in that area and trying to figure out, really what are ways that they can think through and find those values and understand what those values mean as they're making decisions about their career, about family, about life?
You mean like how can they define their own values? How do they get to them?
If there's some exercises or list of questions or something that you found that has really helped guide people, because I think a lot of times we just operate without really thinking through what our values are until we stop and we really assess what has been guiding us.
That would be that. That's a really good, Deborah. That's a really good question, because I think a lot of us just dive in and don't ask those questions. That's why I keep bringing it up, because I was just going to go have the big business and career, and I hadn't really thought about the other stuff until I was in it, and it was great, but I was like, this is great, but it's not everything. And so I honestly think that if we encourage people younger, and even women who have worked and done all these things, and they're like, wait, I've lost myself along the way, like in their late 40s, 50s, they're like, what? I don't even know anymore. It's that going back and going, what's really important to you? What really matters? And, then the career is an outside thing. And the career is a variable. You can that's moldable, but your values shouldn't be moldable. So that's what anchors you. And so when I was in my 20s, I was super ambitious. I didn't think I was ever going to get married or have kids. I thought I was just going to be a businesswoman. And in my era, you kind of weren't cool if you weren't going to, like, why would you have kids? Or, like, it was a push for everyone, all women, to have real careers. And so I changed that up, and I would have, I think it'd be great. It would have been good if I had thought more thoroughly about how I want to live my life and how that's going to look. I don't have a crystal ball, but if I have my values and know what I'm made of as far as my skills and what I've learned and my experience, then that's applicable, and I can mold the career. But molding my own values that's not a negotiable thing. I have to keep that strong. So I hope that answers your question.
I know, Michelle, I've sat in, we've done the Richard Knowles as the value.
Yeah, the Dick Nodell values card sort. Yeah, Richard.
Oh, like you wanted like a questionnaire. I don't have.
Yeah.
But I would say that, really honestly, with what matters to you in your life, in your daily life, in your health, in your mind, in your soul, all of those things, I would write those out. And what's super important, even the simplest thing of enjoying a beautiful walk, if you can. I may not get to go on a beautiful walk every day, but when will I be able to, and how can I fit that in? And just those kinds of things, because this life is just a wonderful gift, and I don't want to just spend it all burning through. That's what I did until I was in my early 30s. I was really burning through because I thought that was really, and I'm not saying it was bad, it was just really, I was certain that was going to be the thing, and then I realized it wasn't. So it was part, but it wasn't. So I think it's super important to have real clear notion of what grounds you, what's valuable to you, family, taking care of yourself, your mental health, spiritual health, if you, so decide to, all of that, super important. And then the other stuff is moldable.
So really for all of us to take that time. And even I'm just thinking of being the intentionality of carving time to really assess those values, the non-negotiables in our life, what we're willing to negotiate, and even as you said, what are the 5 goals and how do those 5 goals fit within that as well? What our values are, what we want to accomplish, what we're willing to do, what we're not willing to do.
And that goes back to what Michelle was asking about the jobs, like the projects or the, something coming up. That goes back to my values. And wow, this is a lot of money, or wow, this is a great project. And it would put me way up there when one would see that I'm doing this or whatever. But I would have to compromise something that's super important to me. So, and that comes across everybody's path. I'm not the only one. It comes across everyone's path, whether you're working corporate or you're working, for yourself. It comes across your path, and you have to make those decisions. And I think it's so good to really strongly keep checking back in with those values and what's important. And like I said, just the simple things. I like having dinners at my house. I like to garden. I like to do these things. Now, am I going to be able to do them? My daughter, she's got a baby. She's got a brand new baby, and she's looking at how she's having to adjust her life so that she's getting the things and she's there. And you can have everything, just not all at once. So, I think that's important to remember too.
The seasons of life.
Excuse me?
Seasons of life.
Seasons of life. Yes. Yes.
I reminded myself of that when my kids were young, and there were those days where it was nonstop from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. And I was just like, I don't think I can do this. And I would just remind myself, this is a season of life. Like, this activity will end in 3 months, or this thing will end.
Yeah.
It is not going to be forever. I can do this for a time. But I think that's true in our careers as well. We have seasons of life. We have career shifts. We transition into different roles, and
I agree. And I think that you connect the dots. You see, okay, this isn't really fun right now, but I see down the road why I have to connect these dots and keep my head down and work hard right now to achieve this, and so I agree. It's not forever. It's just for now. That's what I always say. It's not forever. It's just for now. And
The present.
and then, like what Michelle was saying too, though, it's like people stick with something that's not good. That's a different thing. This is where if it's good and you're moving forward, it's just hard. Then we have to do hard things. Life is, and it's not just when you're young. You have to do hard things throughout life. It gets hard when you're older and you've got ailing parents, and you know what I mean. It gets hard. It just gets hard. And you go, okay, you pull it out of yourself again. Okay, I've done this before. I'm gonna, do this hard thing again. It's not constantly hard, but there's hard things that you have to get through. So
thank you.
Elizabeth, Kat wrote something in the chat. Kat, do you want me to read it, or do you want to just read it?
I can read it. So,
Okay.
hello. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. Because a while ago you were mentioning the importance of intentionally designing our lives, the importance of being brave, like not being complacent and settling. And right now, because I'm graduating, there's a lot of like choices, and a part of me just wants to choose the safe one, just because it's safe. But
Right.
there's a big part of like the voice is so loud, like you should just do this because it's safe and you know what's going to happen. But it doesn't really align with the intentionally designing, because I know I want to do something else. So I was just wondering if you had any advice on how to proceed with that intentional design.
well, it sounds to me, and thank you for asking me this question. That's a really powerfully good question to ask. Again, we're going back to that simple thing of fear of having that certainty and uncertainty. And I guess I would go back to saying, is the safe thing really certain? You don't know what's going to come out of that. You don't know if you'll be terribly unhappy, or you might just hum along and be okay. But you have to really ask yourself those questions and just say, what's the worst thing that can happen? I take a risk and I don't like the job that I took. I move on from there. I mean, I think when you're starting out, you kind of need to feel things out a bit. I I would recommend that, but I don't know. I'm not a career. I mean, Michelle, I think for you to say the safe or the one that's maybe more stimulating and interesting, um, you have to ask yourself, are you able to do that? Are you able to cross that threshold and try the more stimulating, interesting thing? You don't know where that's going to lead. There's nothing that's certain. Neither one of those are really certain. That's, you know what I'm saying? Even the one that looks safe, it's not really certain, but it feels safe. So I would just recommend that you take some time to say what's really important to you. And if you have the freedom to take the risks now, like maybe sometimes in life when you have a house payment and kids and all those things, you go with what's safe because you have to. But right now, if you don't have to, I would try something. Try new things. Try on shoes. If that's me. So for you, I hope that's helpful. But I think you never know where that's going to lead you. So.
One thing I also say, Kat, and for everyone on the screen today is that, everything is temporary until you choose to make it permanent. And you can't choose to make anything permanent besides death and taxes. So besides that, that's all we have. And so again, you take that risk. If it doesn't work, opportunity will knock again. There's so many doors out there that you'll be able to open. But thank you, Kat. So we are at an end, but before we go, I just wanted to ask one last question, just to kind of see where this leads. And it, you can however you want to respond, but if you were to just kind of answer in a quick nutshell, like what's next for you, and where do you see yourself going? And that's a loaded question, Elizabeth, but just wanted to say, hey, what's that next journey?
I want to keep repurposing, what I know and my experience into something that's useful. Now I'm at a place in life where I want to, like legacy. I'm at a place in my life where it's not so much about the big career. So I'm looking at helping with coming up with solutions for the housing shortage, adaptive reuse. I want to work on these big projects. If whenever I can, I have companies that I work with, I contract with. And I want to continue speaking and encouraging people starting out and starting over in life to really be able to find their footing, find what grounds them, and then be able to bloom from there. So
that's fantastic. Well, thank you again for your time today. I mean, this hour flew by and I feel like we could talk forever. Are there any last minute burning questions before we let Elizabeth go? It's 4 o'clock for her in the afternoon. She's on the East Coast. So we're all ending our day in the next hour because we're gonna channel through her today. The office is gonna be closed. But any burning questions for anybody on the screen? Okay. Well, thank you again, Elizabeth. Just your time is very valuable and I do appreciate it, but really felt connected when we first spoke and what a great conversation. So, as always, I hope you have a beautiful day and I think we're done.
all right. Well, thank you